So I know when we were speaking earlier, the whole idea of esports in Africa, like to me, that was a new concept. I had never, heard of esports really having a big scene there. So that was really surprising to me, and I'd love to hear more about that also, because you had mentioned that the games that are really popular there are actually like fighting games, so like Tekken and Street Fighter. I know you mentioned FIFA as well, but yeah, I would love to hear more about why you think it's those particular games that are so popular, especially among like the esports community. And what does esports look like in Kenya and the rest of Africa?
Okay. So yeah, esports has really come a long way on the continent. We have some, excuse me, countries like South Africa that started running activities from way back in 2006. Here in Kenya, we, started running events like from 2009. My then co-founder, for Ludicworks was then able, back in the day, able to, rally young people, do esports events, and was able to take the first team to China, to the then World Cyber Games. So you can see that, Africans were competing in global events from way back, even going back a decade. And this has slowly, been able to be felt across the continent. When you go to the West Africa countries like Ghana, Nigeria, countries up north like Tunisia, Algeria, and even on our side in, Egypt, for example, that also has one of the best esports team on the continent. So this has been quite, a journey of esports. Different young people, both fanatics, both professionals, are definitely playing games for the pastime, but also looking to be able to play professionally. And through one of our initiatives, we definitely hope that this will definitely spotlight esports players both on the continent and also spotlight them internationally, and hopefully also make a career out of this.
Can you tell us a bit more about the kinds of games that they are looking to go pro in? Because I think it's quite different from over here. So, like things like CSGO, for example, are huge when it comes to esports, whereas I think in Africa, it's more like you were saying Tekken and Street Fighter. Why do you think it's so different? Like the whole idea of like the MOBA doesn't really seem to be as big where you're from. Why is that?
Okay. So I think the likes of Tekken, Mortal Kombat, and FIFA are pretty much the most played games. I think mostly because these are the games that have like global prizes and global incentives. Something that a player who plays the game can be able to get something not just for the fun of it, but also like a reward at the end of the day. But we're also seeing other games like Fortnite, for example, which are being received quite well. And then in terms of play in terms of mobile, we're definitely also seeing a shift of people also playing on devices, basically because data is also becoming readily available. This means that latency is also, becoming less on mobile devices. So this will definitely help pick up professional play on mobile devices.
But what do you think are some of the, I guess, the barriers or challenges that scene still sees in Africa or in Kenya?
Interesting question. So the biggest barrier to entry is definitely servers, at least for the most part. You'd find that many African players do play these games, but then they compete with on two fronts: their counterparts on the continent and then their counterparts outside the continent. And even given that whoever they're playing, these servers do sit outside the continent, which gives them an unfair advantage. So imagine playing a game like Call of Duty with a ping of over 120 milliseconds, this definitely puts you at a disadvantage. You might have the same skill set or even more with someone else in Europe, US, wherever, but just because of that latency, that puts you at a very disadvantage.
And when you say that African players don't qualify, why is that?
So if you look at the restriction that some of these licenses that have been set up by the publishers, we, for example, in the championship that we ran last year, we wanted to see how to take some of the participants to be showcased on the global level, but you find that those licenses are only restricted to South Africa, for example. So unless you're from South Africa, then that means you cannot progress, just because of the blocks or what the restrictions of the license the publisher has put in place. Yeah.
And do you know why some of those restrictions are in place? Or like, can you guess why some of those restrictions are in place? Or like, what needs to change for those restrictions to change, do you think?
So most of these publishers don't really see Africa as a market as a whole. Most of them think that perhaps there's no infrastructure, perhaps that people in Africa cannot pay, and perhaps that there's not enough talent. So these are some of the hypotheses we do believe that or assumptions that they are probably using to say if they can make the games available to this market. But I'm happy to say that, Africa, for example, has the best internet infrastructure, which means that if you put your servers on the continent, you'd actually be able to play seamlessly like any other person across the globe. Africans do have a spending power. So it means that we are also buying games from Steam, from Xbox, etc. So we definitely have the money to be able to pay for this. And then thirdly, in terms of talent, we definitely have global talents. So this is what now global publishers need to think differently. Also come with a different mindset, and this will actually see them get more traction, get more adoption, and with the acceleration and adoption, that definitely means that they'll be able to make a return on investment.